Here's the rules for tonight. Walid Shoebat, you have 1 hour. After 1 hour, we have a 10-minute break to go to the bathroom, to catch our thoughts. And you come back for another hour. And and then I think after that, if you're willing, questions and answers, you're a brave man. Is that fine with you? Please give a warm welcome again to Walid Shoebat.
Thank you. I thought at first it was 1 hour. That was it. It was the plans were changed. You know what I was saying? I'll kill you. You know that new cartoonic thing? I'll kill you. That little Ahmed skeleton. Oh, good. I got the marker. You know, he was talking about Brother Chuck Smith. You know, I remember in 79, 80, I walked into Chuck Smith's church as a Muslim in Costa Mesa. We just first started over there in that church. I remember the guy was singing, "There's Nobody Like Jesus." And he was saying, "Is Muhammad like Jesus?" He was singing a rock and roll song. "Is Gandhi like Jesus?" And you know, as soon as I heard, "Is Muhammad like Jesus?" I got offended and I walked out. I said, "I'll never walk into those Christian churches again." I vowed I'll never walk in a church again. I made a vow to Allah that I'll never walk in a church again. And look at me. Allah didn't keep the promise to protect me from the churches. So I blame Allah. And I also want to thank Brother Chuck Missler. I was in a conference with Brother Chuck Missler, and I was concerned, to be honest, going to speak at that conference, because his was a conference, probably the second time I was allowed to talk about Bible prophecy. And I said, how will they receive it? You know, Chuck Missler might not like me talking about maybe some different adjustment of our theories regarding the ends of times. They might, you know, kind of close the door in my face, and I'll be kind of ousted out and be pointed at, you know, he's a strange guy with the strange interpretations. You know, you worry. You sweat blood. And then I went to the conference and he was so open. It's like, no big deal, Walid, no problem. You're wrong, we accept you. He tells me he agrees with me, but I don't know. Americans have a way of saying things, you know. Because I learned very quickly when I came to America. I mean, I was, you know, sometimes inviting Americans to our home, you know, introducing them to some of our foreign dishes. And I remember the first time I invited Americans, and after they finished eating, the first thing, "How did you like it?" And the first thing that came out of their mouth, they said, "It was interesting." So I went to my wife, I says, "They loved it. They thought it was interesting, sort of like intellectual dish. They just loved it." Finally, I learned what the word interesting meant. And I was crushed and hurt. Americans speak with forked tongue. But when I read the Bible, I began to also learn that the Americans really look at terminologies in the scripture and they don't get it. So like, you know, maybe I want to go over some parts of the Bible or some allegorical way of how the West thinks. In all right, where are the pieces of the notes? Go. Page 1. You gonna... I got 2 hours. That's why I'm doing this, you see. Must have dropped it. Oh, well, I don't need those notes anyway. The words in the Bible that, you know, I always have a stickler with Westerners is I think I mentioned it in the beginning of the service, in the second service, I believe. I talked about the word the mountains in the Bible. The word mountains in the Bible, most Westerners would identify as a literal mountain. So when you go to the book of Revelation and you read, there is a woman riding on a beast, and the beast has 7 heads. There are also 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Now, to Westerners, that becomes the Vatican, or it becomes Rome, because Rome sits on 7 hills. So the Vatican is pointed out as the harlot. But may I ask, it says 7 heads. How are these 7 heads? And also it says these mountains are 7 kings. So what do kings rule? Kings don't rule mountains. You have made the allegory literal, and you made the literal allegory. Kings rule kingdoms. So there are 7 kingdoms on which the woman sits. There are also, 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other has not yet come. And if you look at all the allegories in the Bible regarding the usage of the word mountain, you'll find them to be kingdoms. In fact, in Daniel 2, I saw the stone that was cut without hands, smote the image at the feet, and the stone grew to become a great mountain. So the stone is the Messiah. The Messiah becoming a great mountain is becoming a great kingdom, or the kingdom of Christ that fills the whole earth. Pastor's giving me that look, now he approves. Because I forgot to say his kingdom rules the whole world. So his kingdom rules the whole earth. So a mountain is a kingdom. In fact, he said if you have faith of a mustard seed, you can move the mountains. Westerners never thought about what that means. They always think, oh yeah, every time I go to a conference, I ask Americans, what do you think he moves the mountains? If you have faith of a mustard seed, how can you move the mountains? And I always get such generalized answers. You get through your troubles, your turmoils and your tribulations. Another hand raises up, and it's my mother-in-law, it's my our debt problem, my financial problem, Christian finance. I mean, all kinds of, different interpretations here. It's like anything goes in the West. No, he's very specific. If you have faith of a mustard seed, you can change the kingdoms. You can change kingdoms. You can change governments. Okay? Literal. So once you understand that the Bible is not really an allegoric book, it really means business. It means specific things. The mountains bows to Christ when he comes. The mountains bow to you in the Psalms. The rivers flows to you. Rivers don't flow to the Messiah, neither does mountains bow. God will remove the mountains. He doesn't remove mountains. My sheep scattered through the mountains. Sheep don't scatter. The Jews didn't scatter up in the mountains. They went to countries and nations. In fact, Ahmadinejad, in his speech, he says, and Islam will rise over all the mountains. I can share it to you on video. Everybody in the East knows what mountains is. Mountains are kingdoms. Now that we know the mountains are kingdoms, maybe we can go to the Bible and begin to look and revisit the book of Revelation and all these things. But before we visit Revelation, when we study the Bible and we talk about Bible prophecy, we don't begin in Revelation. We begin in the literal parts of Scripture. In other words, the mold that needs to be built in order to come up with a paradigm regarding what God wanted and intended to say, the first thing hermeneutically we do is we go to all the literals that were mentioned in the Bible regarding the ends of times. And then we document all these things, and then we say, okay, what is God telling us literally? Well, I went through some of the verses. Isaiah 19, the Lord comes in a swift cloud coming to fight the country of Egypt. You see, I don't like allegory. I don't like Western ways that everything's generalized. Egypt is not my credit card problems. Egypt is Egypt. Things are going on in Egypt. What's going on in Egypt? You need to start learning what's going on in these countries. Why is Christ fighting these countries? Egypt has Al-Azhar University. Al-Azhar University is the #1 university in the Islamic studies par excellence that graduates Muslim clergy, Muslim scholars throughout the whole Sunni Muslim world. It's huge. Egypt is the country where the Muslim Brotherhood began when the Ottoman Caliphate, the Khilafah, well, new term, sorry, Americans, I gotta explain what Khilafah is. Khilafah is the vicar of Muhammad, the caliphate. As you see, the Pope being the vicar of the Catholic, of Christ to the Catholic Church, so is the Khilafah as the vicar of Muhammad on earth. I mentioned before the caliphate was wounded in 1924. Muhammad died. The first Khalifa was Abu Bakr, after him Umar, Uthman, all the way down till the Ottoman Empire seized and was wounded in 1924. The Ottoman Empire encompassed the Roman Empire, took over the Roman Empire, if you will, when the Roman Empire ceased to exist in the West. When the barbarian hordes basically dismantled it in the West, it continued for hundreds of years in the eastern parts of the Roman Empire, called the Byzantium Empire. The Byzantium Empire was in Turkey. That was the Holy Roman Empire, remember? And who took over the Holy Roman Empire? It was the Muslims, Muhammad II. The Muslims with the caliphate moved into the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire ceased to exist at this point. So that wound wanted to heal itself. In 1928, the Muslim Brotherhood was born in Egypt. And the Muslim Brotherhood began to sprout Islam again, to try to revive it again. They never ceased to try to revive this beast again. Never. They never stopped. The clergy never stopped. They continued. And you have the same thing in Saudi Arabia, what you guys call Wahhabist and that kind of thing. Westerners seem to like the idea of trying to blame the mess on one party always. They try to pick somebody to label and kind of forgive everybody else. So the problem with Islam is the Wahhabists, you know. There's those Wahhabists down there. It's those Muslim Brotherhood, you know. That's all. You know, Islam is a peace-loving religion. Do you know what I meant when I met Wahhabi Islam kind of thing, when I heard of Wahhabi Islam? Do you know where I heard of Wahhabi Islam? When I came to America after 9/11. Wahhabi Islam, what in the world is that? I lived all my life as a Muslim, never heard of Wahhabi Islam. Never heard of it. Islam is Islam. Where in the world does people come up with this Wahhabi Islam? Of course the Wahhabists in Saudi Arabia are fanatic. They've always been fanatic. Before the Wahhabists, before any of these things, before the Salafis. Islam is Islam. All Muslims, whether Shia or Sunni, believe in the coming of the Mahdi, who will usher in 7 years of peace. There will be the last 7 years in the Islam in the world, basically. The last years before God will judge the world. And somehow during those 7 years, the Jews must be liquidated, and the trees and the stones will cry out, there's a Jew hiding behind me, come a Muslim, come and kill him. So your Antichrist basically was our Messiah. Mahdi basically comes back in the spirit of Muhammad. Muhammad said, he will have my spirit. Okay? Now that we talked about basically mountains as being kingdoms, and we can all study the Bible and begin to unlock scripture, that's all you really need. Other things, waters, you know, the woman comes out of the waters. What are waters? Waters, he tells John, multitudes, nations, different tribes and different tongues, different, you know. So this entity of the beast is really ruling from every different tribe and different tongue. Fish in the Bible. Fish is basically followers. Remember, Jesus says, fish. You will be fishers of men. The same thing with Gog, you know. The scales, you know, the fish will come on your scales and God will put a hook in his mouth. Gog, you know. So you see a lot of these stars. Stars are angels. I'll be above the stars of God. I'll be above the angelic host of God. The pride of Satan himself. What else is there? You know, trees. The olive tree is always the Messiah. Why is the olive tree the Messiah? Why did Messiah choose the olives? Because the only way to get the fruit and to get the oil out of the olives is by crushing it. He was crushed for our iniquities. So all the symbolism in the Bible has a meaning, has very specific meaning. There's reasons. This is why I like the Hebraic Eastern way of thinking. Cut and dry, you know, there's a point for everything. There's a reason for everything. The cedar tree will be sort of the devil or Satan. Lucifer is identified as the cedar tree, the cedar of Lebanon, basically. Some of the nicknames of AntiChrist in the Bible should yield an important piece of information, because if you look at the nicknames of Antichrist in the Bible, he is called many things. He's called the Prince of Tyre. Now, where is Tyre? Lebanon. Excuse me, if the Antichrist is Italian, why is God calling him the Prince of Lebanon? Why is he calling Al Pacino? Why he calls him the Prince of Tyre? How come this stuff is missing from the interpretation in the West? I've never heard anybody say why his name is Prince of Tyre. Well, that's just a coincidence, Walid. Okay, fine. Why is he called the King of Babylon? Babylon is a specific place, and that is the regions of Iraq and Arabia. Why? Why is he called the Assyrian? Assyria encompasses Turkey, Iraq, a specific region of land. Why is he called the Assyrian? Why is he called Pharaoh of Egypt? Oh, that's just a nickname. Well, why is Christ fighting Egypt then? He's fighting the Pharaoh of Egypt because Antichrist rules these lands. And once you go to the specifics in Daniel, then it's very clear. This is Egypt. Cush, Phut, and Egypt will follow him in submission. Cush is Sudan. Cush is the landmass south of Egypt. In fact, I get this argument all the time. Walid, you challenged America to find a single country that God destroys in the ends of times that is not Muslim. Ethiopia. I always bring that up. Ethiopia, Christian country. Duh. I said, sure. Let's go to the Hebrew. The Hebrew uses Cush. Let's go to the Unger Bible Dictionary or any Bible dictionary you want. Cush, the landmass south of Egypt. I go to the map, show them what's south of Egypt. Sudan. Somaliland. I said, you just picked the most fundamentalist country in the world as evidence for a non-Muslim country. Ethiopia, translated Ethiopia correctly. There's no problem with the translation. The problem is with the usage of terms. The ancient Ethiopia, from the time of Ezekiel, was the landmass of Nubia, Sudan, and that kind of thing. That modern Ethiopia was anciently Abyssinia. Different country, different place. That's all it is. It's a simple adjustment. So you go to the Bible and you find all these literal evidence. Isaiah chapter 10, verse 31. Why is he called the Prince of Tyre? Well, God himself, the Messiah, Christ himself, destroys Lebanon. Isaiah 10, verse 31. Isaiah 10:31, and Lebanon will fall by the mighty one. The boss himself. So why is he fighting Lebanon? You have only two choices. Either your theory is wrong, or you need to adjust something here. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to start a revolution on prophecy. I am not here to pick on Brother Hal Lindsey or Tim LaHaye or any of those folks. You know what? I love these guys. Let me tell you why. Because if one thing the great American Bible scholars got right was the issue regarding Israel. No one else did. The American theologians had that so pat down that they're the only ones I was able to focus on to get straight answers about this issue of Israel. Because if I go to Eastern interpretation, Middle East, Israel doesn't matter. Israel is hated. So not everybody has the puzzle correctly. I have a piece, he has a piece, you have a piece, we put the pieces together. In the Middle East, you have a saying, I have one good idea, and you have one good idea. Boy, we put them together, we get two ideas. What's wrong with that? So don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that I'm sorry. No, it is an adjustment, that's all it is. Because we all believe the Antichrist is coming. I'm not coming with new theories here. I still believe in tribulation period, 7 years, all these things, rapture, all these great things. We believe the same thing. It is just an adjustment that knowledge in the end will increase in time. The closer we get to the end, the better the picture is going to look like, and we have much better reasons or much more knowledge to put the puzzle correctly together. As Daniel said, seal the vision. For it's been for the end of time, for the time of the end. It's been appointed for the time of the end. It's sealed. So what part of sealed don't you get? If it's sealed, it's sealed until the time of the end. You know, they've been trying to unlock these things all this time. Now, am I coming with something new that's saying Islam is involved? No. In fact, I can quote you many historians that thought it was Islam as well. I take people like Lord, what's his name? Who wrote the 70 weeks, he figured out the 70 weeks of Daniel. Sir Robert Anderson. Sir Robert Anderson was in Scotland Yard, you know, he was head of Scotland Yard. He unlocked the 70 weeks of Daniel. He was the first in history to unlock the 70 weeks of Daniel, to give you exactly the date and time when Christ came. Amazing stuff. I read some of his writings, and he said, I am not so sure that when the Bible talks about the revival of the fourth beast, that is talking about Rome. He says it's the Levant, not the Adriatic. It's the Levant, the eastern parts of the Roman Empire, but not the western parts. It's Egypt, it's those countries. I don't think Britain is playing at all, or the West is playing at all in this thing. Guess what? He was right. Can one man be right and the whole world wrong? I mean, everybody asks me, are you the only one with that theory? If I say yes, then oh, forget it, I'm writing you off. Can one person be right and the whole world wrong? Do you know what? It usually is the case. If you believe in Noah, Noah was right and the whole world died. What kind of a message do you think God was sending? God was sending a message. You didn't pay attention to Noah. In the end, he went all the way to the bank and he cashed in. He's the only one that survived in his family. So I pay attention. Now, we can all unlock the Bible together. I can go to, let's say, you pick part of the Bible and we can read it together with this allegoric unlocking mechanism. We can unlock everything. And guess what? We all think in unison. Let's go to Daniel. Daniel chapter 2. In Daniel 2, it talks about the image. Now in California, I don't have to explain that stuff from scratch. That's California. In the Bible Belt, I got to start from the beginning. The head of gold, what it is, and the silver, and what? Now, do I have to go through that here? Californians, good. I'm telling you, they're the best. No, you won't hear me go to Texas and say, you guys are the best. And no, I don't play phony baloney. I tell them the truth. You got the gold, right? You got the silver. You got the bronze. You got the iron. You got the toes of iron and clay. Now, the gold is which country? Babylon today is what? Iraq. What's happening in Iraq? Mess. You want to know what AntiChrist is going to rule? Follow the mess. Then you got silver, which is what? Medo-Persia. Right? Today is what? Iran. What's going on in Iran? Mess. The bronze. You know what the bronze is? The Grecian Empire, which is the 1040 window. You look at the 1040 window, mess. That's the Grecian Empire. Now, the iron, some think it's the Roman Empire, the two divisions. Well, maybe. But the iron crushes. Then the thing about the iron, or the fourth kingdom, is that it crushed all the kingdoms before it, it says. It crushed all of them. The first question I have to my Western thinker is that you claim this is the Roman Empire. If it is the Roman Empire, can you tell me how and when did Rome crush the silver? It did not take Iran, the Parthian. It never completely succeeded in trying to take over the Parthian Empire, the Iranian, the Persian. They never crushed all the ones before it. Okay? Never. So, the iron is, guess what? It comes back again. In other words, you look at this composite, you look at the rest of the composites, they match perfectly. In fact, if you look at Revelation chapter 13, in Revelation chapter 13, it tells you about this beast. Verse 2, now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear. His mouth like the mouth of a lion. In the West, it's, let's see, his mouth of a lion, his blasphemies. His feet of a bear, well, he stomps, kind of like a big military machine. And the leopard, he's as fast as the leopard. I don't know where you come up with this stuff. The mouth of a lion, the lion is a specific composite of a specific empire. And that specific empire was the Babylonian Empire. The lion is Babylon. All scholars agree, whether they agree with my Islamic paradigm or not, they all agree. Right, Mr. Misler? The lion is Babylon. Go ahead, yes or no? No comment. He pleads the fifth. I learned from Americans when they plead the fifth. They're playing politics anyway. So then you have the feet of a bear. Who's the bear? No, it's not. Don't say Russia. Iran, Medo-Persia. You're right. It is Iran, the Medo-Persian Empire. Well, those are all Muslim. The lion is Babylon. The leopard is the Grecian 1040 window. All that is Muslim. And the bear is Iran, Medo-Persia. All that is Muslim. And that's where all the mess is happening. So if Revelation gives you this composite, well, where's Europe? It doesn't have Europe. The Grecian Empire never included Europe. So the very one the West is focused on is the one that's never mentioned in the Bible, nowhere in literal fashion or even allegoric fashion. Even if we accept that this is the Roman Empire ceased to exist in the West, but continued to exist in the 1040 window parts. By the way, North Africa, Algeria, Libya, Tunisia, Morocco, Mauritania were part of the Roman Empire. And guess what? They were part of the Western Roman Empire, not the Eastern. So if you want 5 toes, you can find 5 toes easily in the African, North African regions with a revival of a Roman Empire. And you can find 5 in the East easily. So we have the 1040 window, we have the Muslim, and then guess what? There's really 5 if you look at it. They're not 4, they're 5. They're 4 and they're 5. Both are correct. Because it tells us there are 4. There are also 5. Because here the iron and the clay seems to be coming out of this, but really it's a revival of the 4th. Okay? Now, the interesting part in looking at this, look what it says. Verse 35. Verse 34. Verse 34, you watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. Then the iron and the clay, the bronze and the silver, and the gold were crushed together. Did you see that together there? All at the same time? I know that doesn't mean much to you. Let me tell you why that's so significant. Because if this is speaking about history, if this statue is regarding the gold being ancient Babylon, and the silver being ancient Persia, and the bronze being ancient Grecia, how are they destroyed together? Either the Bible has a mistake, or we have a mistake. When it comes to the Bible and us, guess who has the mistake always? Rule number 1 in hermeneutics. You're always wrong. The whole world is wrong and Noah's right. And that's how it is. It says they were all crushed together at the same time. Who crushes them together? the Messiah himself personally will come and fight them. And became like chaff. Threshing floor, wind carried them. The stone struck the image, became a great what? Mountain. Verse 35. And filled the whole earth. He became a great kingdom. He's a king ruling a mountain, a kingdom. Boy, it sounds a little different than what you're used to in the West. Things begin to click for a change. God means something specific. So if the stone crushes the image, hits the image at the feet, in the end, at this position, and they will all be crushed together, that means what? That means the ancient Babylonian Empire must come back as a power peg in the Middle East. And guess what? They're working on it. You Americans crushed them. Now they're working in Islamic stuff. Sharia law is in there. Iran, it's right here, working. Ahmadinejad is threatening the world. In fact, the AntiChrist himself, it says in the book of Daniel, he will go against the strongest of all fortresses. What does that mean? He's crazy enough to declare war on the most powerful nations on earth. It's exactly what Muslims do. They declared war on Britain, they declared war on America. So how is it Christ will crush the ancient Babylonian? No, because these come back again. This is Muslim, this is Muslim, this is Muslim. You know, whether your interpretation of the Roman Empire, I don't know. So that means Europe becomes Muslim too. If you want to say that the iron is the Rome, is Europe, then Europe is going to turn Muslim too. But I don't think so. I don't think that's what it is about. Because as we study the Bible, we don't find any literals with the European countries at all. So the Messiah will destroy all Islamic nations coming in the end. In other words, what we begin to understand when we look at these things is that what the West thinks is that the Bible is single-minded. He says something specific regarding one specific stuff, but it does not apply the duality of Scripture. The Scripture is dual. It has a short term and a long term. In other words, it happens again. Okay? If you look at Revelation 13, it sure confirms that. You go to Revelation chapter 17. In Revelation 17, it talks about this woman, Mystery Babylon. Verse 9. Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. There are also 7 kings. So, is there an eraser? No eraser. Oh, thank you. Thank you, brother. So we draw 7 mountains. 1 mountain, 2 mountain, 3 mountain, 4 mountain, 5 mountain, 6 mountain, 7 mountain. You like my mountains? Americans love the art, the panache. There are 7 mountains. There are also 7 kings. Kings rule kingdoms. So we got 1 kingdom, 2 kingdoms, 3 kingdoms, 4 kingdoms, 5 kingdoms, 6 kingdoms, 7 kingdoms. Right? Okay. Look what it says. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen. Huh. Who's writing this stuff? John. John is saying 5 kingdoms, empires, fell in the past. So John must be sitting on number 6, right here. And he's saying 5 fell. What fell before the Roman? He was sitting on the number 6. What fell before that? Well, we know. The Grecian Empire. Okay? Medo-Persia. Okay? Babylon. Assyria. And Egypt. Boy, the Lord fights Egypt. Antichrist is called Pharaoh of Egypt. Antichrist is called the Assyrian. Antichrist is called the king of Babylon. You name it. He is called Gog of the land of Magog, which is, you know, all these things fits the Antichrist kingdoms. Guess what? The woman rides on all 7. They come in the end. The ancient empires of the past come back again, because the woman rides a beast with 7 heads and 7 kingdoms and 7 mountains, all again coming back again in the end of time. You got it? 5 have fell. 1 is the Roman here, and the other has not yet come, number 7. The 7th one, he's saying, has not came yet. Okay? Okay, what hasn't came yet? What nation came after the Roman Empire? The Roman Empire ceased to exist in the West. I explained that. Continued to exist in Byzantium, in Turkey. And when Muhammad II took over, it was the Muslim Empire. That was number 7, Ottoman Muslim. The Muslim Empire, number 7. Remember, this had a horn. When this kingdom failed, number 1, when number 2 failed, it took this horn from this one. Plucked this horn. This guy plucked this horn. This guy plucked, Number 5 had, guess what? It had 4 horns. The Grecian Empire was broken into 4. Ptolemy, Seleucid, the stuff. And then came the Roman, took away from the Grecian 1 horn, okay? Then came the Islamic in Turkey and took away the mantle from the Roman. The Roman Empire ceased to exist. Read Gibbons and the Fall of Rome. Tons of reading stuff material if you want to recognize that Roman Empire did fall. Because the Western paradigm insists that the Roman Empire never fell. Why? Because it won't fit the theory. The Roman Empire must have continued to exist. So you have this 1 horn here. Count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 horns. In sequence is giving you the sequence of the kingdoms. So he's saying, watch out for number 7 here. That's the one you need to watch out from. Why? Look at the text what it says. The beast that was and is not, hasn't came yet. It's a previous empire, either the Grecian or the Assyrian, but it hasn't risen yet. It's going to rise as the 7th one. Also himself is the what? In verse 11? The 8th, and is one of the 7. Hello? He is the 8th. He comes back the same one again. In other words, it's a revival of an Islamic empire. Fractured. Different fractured. Not a whole. Okay? You're not convinced? Then you must go and tell me how Christ crushes the statue altogether. If you're not convinced, then you need to answer me why in Revelation 13 the body is a body of a leopard, the Greco. It's a Greco-Romano empire. Even the beast has nails of bronze, teeth of iron and nails of bronze. Nails are fingers. There's not only toes, there's also fingers. Did you know that? It has nails of bronze. Bronze has always been Greco. In fact, if you don't believe me, there's a chapter in the Bible that rarely ever is addressed. I love those ones that are rare, like a rare coin. In Zechariah chapter 9, verse 13. Look what it says. I mean, you look at the whole stuff of Zechariah, verse chapter 8. I will return to Zion and will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. Does that need an interpreter? My job is so easy. I just have to read it for you. That's all. Thus says the Lord, behold, I will save my people from the land of the east and from the land of the west. I will bring them back, and they shall dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. Boy, chapter 9 of Zechariah. He talks about Damascus. Verse 5, he talks about Gaza. Gaza also shall be very sorrowful. The Philistines. Verse 9, rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and having salvation. Then it gets into the ends of times, and it talks about verse 13. For I have bent Judah my bow, fitted the bow with Ephraim, and raised up your sons, O Zion, against your sons, O Greece. You see that? Now, is Zion a person? No, there's no person named Zion. Zion is a geographic location. God is interested in geographic locations. Because in the West, what happens, the mistake, is that they go, let's see, Gog, Magog, Meshech, Tubal, Gomer, Beth Togarma. These are the children of Japheth, you know. So they say, where did the children of Japheth go? Well, they went to Europe, they went to Russia, they went all over, they went to America. Let's go trace where these people migrated to. That's what the Bible is talking about. No! The Bible is about geography, specific locations. The children of Zion are geographic locations against the children of Greece, geographic location. Okay? The Hebrew for translated as Greece is Ionia. Ionia or Iowan. Where is Ionia? Greece. Where? Where in Greece? Because Western mindset, when I say the word Greece to the West, you know what they think? Ding, 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 Zorba the Greek. Athens. No. Forget Athens. Ionia is in Western Turkey. Cyprus is occupied by Turkey anyway. Nobody's helping those guys out. America wants to help the Palestinian PLO terrorists and forget the real friends and the Christians. They don't want to help the Lebanese Christians. They want to help the bad guys. Wisdom of American government? War on terror, my foot. There is no war and terror. It's all politics, you know? It's all a game. Israel has to pay always. They have to pay. Why? Why does Israel have to pay? Do you ever think about it? Just as Christ. They have to parallel Christ in everything. They have to suffer. He suffered the same ways. Naked, naked. Hungry, hungry. All these things. And look what it says. Look what it says. Verse 14. If you don't believe me, this is about the coming of Christ fighting that region of the north in Turkey. Verse 14. Then the Lord will be seen over them. Wow. I have bent Judah my bow, fitted the bow with Ephraim, a war, and raised up your sons, O Zion, against your sons, O Greece. Then his arrows, the Lord will be seen. The Lord will be seen over them. What part of the Lord be seen do you not get? Christ is there on earth. And his arrow will go forth. Is Christ going to use missiles? Sometimes I suspect it very much. After all, Israel developed what they call the arrow missile. Very fast thing, you know. They will hit the nuclear that's coming out of the Muslim country before it even hits the area of Israel. So in other words, when Ahmadinejad develops his garbage and he throws it using a Scud missile, Israel with their arrow could reach over there and have it explode over their own land. Don't mess with Israel. That's what the verse is saying. His arrows will go forth. Like lightning. The Lord God will blow the trumpet and go with whirlwinds from the where? South. So if the Lord himself, Christ, is fighting coming from the south, where is he going? He's coming south, he's going. Good, okay, good. Sometimes it's American geography, little bit. He's going north. But I thought the Antichrist is coming from the west. Why is he going north? Do you know there is no place in the Bible that the threat's coming from the west? It's all from the east, kings of the east, and it's from north, and from the south. Nothing from the west. In fact, the ships of Chittim in Daniel, which is translated as the Roman ships from the Mediterranean, comes to fight against the Antichrist. Because the Western mindset thinks that the Antichrist rules the entire globe. Because you're all set on your idea. Antichrist rules the whole world. You're all going to go to the DMV and get computer chips. And if you don't get the chip, guess what? You know, you're not going to buy and sell. I know what you think. I've been spying at you when I was a Muslim. I'm serious. That's why I walked in Chuck Smith's church. And the problem in America that you spy at these guys and end up infecting you. So what is it going to be? John, man, he's got the chip. Get a little microscope and look at foreheads with chips. Is that what it's going to be about? Second of all, how many flavors are there? If you go to the book of Revelation, look at the flavors of these marks of the beast and all that stuff. How many flavors do you have? Verse 17. Revelation 13, verse 16, 17, and 18. He caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark in their right hand and on their foreheads. Wow. That no one may buy and sell, lest he have the mark or the name or the number of his name. What's this or? Can you tell me what the or means? This or this or that. If it's 666, one size fits all, what's the ors? There's reason for those ors. There's different flavors. When you study the Bible, my friend, don't just listen to a sermon. Go to the text, examine each word. Each word. What is that word? And be a stickler over that word. What does that word mean? I want to know what that word means. Sometimes I spend an entire month trying to research what one word means in the Bible. Entire month. And when I get it, Eureka! I got it! Wake up my wife 3 o'clock in the morning. Honey, look what I found, the nugget! I drive her crazy over researching the Bible. The mark or the name or the number. I don't want to go over through the detail, but I must look at one part, the name of the beast. Remember what I talked about a name, because most people think, name of the beast. Let's see. What's the elections going on? You got Barack Obama. You got Hillary Clinton. Barack Obama. Yeah, that's it. Let's add it up. 6. It adds up to 666. I found it. And you have all these articles all over the internet. You want garbage Bible prophecy? Go to the internet. It's filled with it. Just put 666 and enjoy the garbage. I mean, Hillary Clinton is going to be the beast? You've calculated Henry Kissinger, it doesn't add up. You calculated 25 nations from the EU, you know, because it was more than 10. The 10th nation joined us, Greece. The EU is the Antichrist, and when Greece joined the 10th nation, that's it, you got the composite. You know, even great pastors, I don't want to mention names, I get in a lot of trouble. That's it, that's it. It's coming, it's this date and that date and all these things. 25 some nations joined the EU. Now, guess what? It doesn't fit. So what is it? It's the G8. The G8. Oh, the Roman Empire. Oh, okay, let's see. The harlot is not Rome? It doesn't sound like Rome, man. The Pope, after all, they're burning his effigy all over the place. The guy kind of like is not, you know, the Catholic Church is losing a lot of money. It can't be fitting. Well, let's see. It's a combination burrito. The Muslims with the Catholics. These days, there isn't a single Western prophecy scholar, not one, that says Islam is not involved. They all say it. All of them. I watch Hal Lindsey. I love Hal Lindsey's show. Do you watch his stuff on TV? It's good. He shows a lot of good stuff. He's one of the few that are showing what's happening in the Muslim world. Even Hal gets it. Brother Hal, he gets it. Somehow Islam's involved, but I just don't know exactly how the whole thing fits together. But it does. Where were we? Yeah, the name. The name is what? It's not a name, a literal name. A name, you have to think what the Bible means by name, just like the word mountain. A name. His name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Are these names? No, these are titles. His name shall be called Emmanuel, which means God with us. Those are not names, those are titles. If you want to insist on your Western way of thinking, and you want to be so stickly about it, then it says his name shall be called Emmanuel. He must be from Mexico. And if you want to insist on your way of interpreting it, Jesus is not the Messiah. Hello? Come on. If Jesus is not the Messiah, what do? Go to the mirror. That's the mistake. Emmanuel, it's a title. It's a declaration of faith. That's what it's all about. It's a creed. The creed of Christ. That's what we're fighting over. That's what we're dying over. In the first services, I did an altar call for everybody to accept Islam. I said, anybody here wants to accept Islam? There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger, and you will have instant peace with the Muslim world. You want to have peace? You can have it right now. I offered that to the church. What a strange church. The pastor, Jack Hibbs, must have brainwashed the church so much to be anti-Islam and so Islamophobic that they want peace with Islam. Not one raised his hand. I prove it to you right now. Anybody who wants to accept Islam, say there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger, raise your hands. You see? Not one. Now here's the question I have. When the rubber meets the road, and they take one of you, and they chop their head in front of you, and you see their blood go down the stairs. We've seen that kind of stuff. You're not used to this. You buy your meat packaged in America. And you see this. And then I say, next. Anybody who wants to accept Islam, say there's no God but Allah, Muhammad is his messenger. You still don't raise your hand. I take your wife. What about you? Now how will you act? Right now, you're joking around. No, okay. Well, when push comes to shove, the question I have is, will you put your head on that chopping block? Anybody who says they put their head on the chopping block, raise your hand. Do you know what? I choose a different tactic. I'll fight. I'll fight. I choose to fight. I ain't gonna let nobody chop my wife's head in front of my eyes. I'm gonna take a dozen of them before they get me down. And that's the American attitude. We're not going to take no mark of the beast, but it take a mark of blasphemy. The mark is the name, by the way, and it's a declaration of faith. That's what it is. It's a creed. Emmanuel is a creed. Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace is a creed. It's the creed that we all died for. It's the creed that your forefathers died for. They bled for it. And those people want you to believe in it. So you have finally peace. And you become subservient to that system. To pledge allegiance to the beast. To give allegiance. That's what it's all about. An antichrist system that people are uncomfortable to even address or talk about, fearing they're going to be labeled Islamophobes. I ain't worried about it, because judgment comes. I did my job. From a terrorist to an ambassador. I'm telling you, that's what it is. He transformed you from a terrorist to become an ambassador. In some of the sticklers in, let's see, Daniel chapter 9. We have 6 minutes left before we give you a break. Daniel 9. Because Daniel 9, remember, in Daniel, it talks about, in chapter 8, the little horn. Chapter 11, All scholars, by the way, agree the little horn comes from the Greco parts of the Roman Empire. The Greco parts of the Roman Empire is Muslim, by the way. Remember, the little horn comes out of the Grecian Empire, out of one of the 4 horns that broke off the Grecian Empire. Remember, the Grecian Empire doesn't include Western Europe. So the little horn comes out of the 4 Grecian Empire. Guess what? He doesn't come from Europe. The Western paradigm says, sure, he comes from the East. They don't deny that. They say somehow he immigrates to Europe. He becomes the head of the EU. He lives over there, you know. And one of the other things they back their theory with is Daniel chapter 9. Because in Daniel chapter 9, the prince comes from the Roman Empire, and no one can deny that. Right? The prince comes from the Roman Empire. That is Daniel 9:27, 9:26, 9:27. Do we have to go through Daniel 9 and talk about the 70 weeks and how that was all fulfilled? No. You guys know what that is about. 69 weeks, there's 7 years left. The devil knows there's 7 years left. So Muhammad said that the Mahdi will usher in 7 years. Everything you see in Islam, they know the Bible prophecy, but it becomes what is unholy in the Bible becomes what's holy. The Antichrist becomes the Mahdi that Islam is waiting for. You understand? Everything is in reverse. The good guys are the bad guys. The one who mistreats women, he doesn't honor the desire of women. Daniel, he doesn't honor the desire of women. He doesn't honor women's rights, period. That's what it means. It doesn't say he doesn't desire women. It's not one of those. He doesn't honor the desire of women. He doesn't care about women's rights. Western thinking is to say, okay, he doesn't honor the desire of women. The desire of women was to bring forth the Messiah. So he doesn't care about the women who want to bring forth the Messiah or something like that. Excuse me. Is there any woman here that has a desire of bringing forth the Messiah? Anybody? Any woman? Have you heard of any woman lately that has a desire to bring forth the Messiah? I've never heard of such a woman. That's the first coming. So why do you keep that hanging till the end? There's no woman who has a desire to give birth to the Messiah. He doesn't honor the desire of women, stems from the problem in the garden, the original problem between the devil. I will put enmity between the devil and the woman. Sorry guys, he chose the woman. She brings forth the seed of the Messiah. He wants to destroy the woman. He hates the woman. From that perspective, Satan has always hated the woman. What religion today you know that dishonors women more than any other religion in the world? Islam. He changes time and laws. That's what it says. Who wants to change all the laws of the world to Sharia law? Have you Googled Sharia lately? You need to Google Sharia to understand Islamic law. Most Westerners think that Islam is a religion. It has a facade of a religion. It's a government system. Islam is a government system to be established throughout the whole world. In fact, Daniel 11, it's very clear. Look at that. In verse 37, he shall regard neither the God of his fathers nor desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall exalt himself above them all. But in their place he shall honor a God of fortresses, a God of war. Who's honoring a God of war? Cheat sheet says Islam. And a God which his fathers did not know. He doesn't honor the God of his ancestors, in other words. And what does he do? Which his father, he honored them with gold and silver and precious stones and pleasant things. Wow. When I read this as a Muslim, any Muslim who reads this, it's phenomenal. Why? Because Muslims are required to honor Allah by proceeds of your silver and your gold once a year to propagate and advance jihad, the war to propagate Allah throughout the whole world. Look up zakah. Have you Googled zakat lately? Z-A-K-A-T. Zakat. Google it. Learn more about how Muslims give percentage of their gold and silver. When I read this as a Muslim, it freaks me out. I mean, like, what? Our stuff is in the Bible, but it's not good. And what does he do? It says he advances by their place honor a God of fortress and God which his fathers did not know. He shall honor him with gold, silver, and stones, and pleasant things. And then it talks about him advancing this God. Where is that verse? I know it's there somewhere. I'll find it in a 10-minute break and I'll show it to you. 39, thank you. He shall act against the strongest, there it is. Thus, it's right there, the next verse. Thus he shall act against the strongest of fortresses. He declares war on America and Britain and Europe. With a foreign God, which he shall acknowledge, and what? Advance its glory through the war. Through these battles, by declaring war against the highest of fortresses, he is advancing the glory of this foreign God, a singular God. Not pagan gods, but a single God. A God of war. And the Christ can't be a Jew, my friends. The Jews don't honor a God of war. And don't tell me because Israel must trust the Antichrist, that's why he must be a Jew so they can trust him. I'm sorry to bust your bubble. They trusted Yasser Arafat. And he was not a Jew. He was a Muslim and believed in the God of war. Right in front of your very eyes. In Daniel 9, break. Huh? What? Yeah, what? Yeah, break. Break, 10 minutes. Don't go home. Thank you. My biggest focus, really, when I go to universities is the youth of America. Because nobody's paying attention to the youth. If you don't take care of the youth, the devil will. He will. And all what they want to do, just like Nazism, is rob one generation, brainwash that generation, and the rest is history. It's finished. You can destroy America by robbing the generation of this current American youth. And they're all over the universities. Very little ministries are going to the universities and reaching out to the youth. It's so crucial. No one is. The most important ministry, in my opinion, beyond and above anything that we're doing, is reaching to the youth. Every single conference I go, I see lots of gray-haired people. You're not going to last. Neither am I. We're going to go. What's going to remain after is our kids and our grandkids and their grandkids. That's who we have to look after. It's a problem. It's an epidemic. If you look at the Christian movement versus the Muslim movement, the Muslims concentrating on the youth. Look at all the Muslim demonstrations, very young. Where the Christians aren't concentrating on their youth. Okay. Antichrist is captured. He's thrown into the lake of fire in Revelation 19. Yes, but before this happens, you have to fight him. Talk about the marriage supper of the Lamb, in Revelation 19. Now, with Western mindset, looks at these things, they say, well, the beast and the false prophet. The beast is an individual, and the false prophet is another individual. Those two individuals are cast into the lake of fire. Well, every place I've seen in the Bible, beasts, really, it is an empire or an entity. Beasts coming out of the earth, it says they are also kings. Is a beast a king? Yes. Is it a kingdom? Yes. All of the above. So you must think about the beast as a king ruling a kingdom. The beast and the false prophet are cast into the lake of fire. If you don't want to agree that the beast is a kingdom with multitude of people, then you must tell me in Revelation 19:7, look what it says. The marriage supper of the Lamb has come and his wife made herself ready. I can argue and say his wife is an individualette. After that, after all, Christ did not fulfill his ministry. He never was married. When he comes again, he's going to have a marriage, and we're going to have a chuppah, and he's going to break the glass, and we're going to sing Hava Nagila for him. You disagree with me? Why? Because after all, everything is an individual. The beast is an individual. The beast is the Antichrist all the time. Keep poking in that thing. Beast is Antichrist every single time. But no, not necessarily, because the wife in the very context is multitude.